Get to my channel too. How do we do
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
I don't even know how to do that.
Well, Sarah will send you the video.
Oh, you know what? And I have my whole tripod at home and everything I could have set up for you.
Oh, for us to finally get to make
Right,
a video is
I got
such a job, but we're going to, because I got an opportunity. An old friend of mine from that was back in the lead acid days. That's how far back we go.
Oh gosh.
Back in 6-volt golf cart. That although you were at the tail end of golf carts.
Yes.
You didn't live with golf cart batteries for 5 or 10 years. You got one pack and that was it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got a taste. Mm-hmm. You got a taste of golf cart.
Well, I had 18 flooded lead acid batteries in my 240SX.
Yeah. If people that think that putting 20 or 18 65-pound batteries in a car would be a totally ridiculous thing, it was commonplace in our time.
40-mile range, yeah. 0 to 60 was about 9 seconds. Yeah. It wasn't fast, but it
worked. we weren't looking for speed. But you came along when there was speed. See, before that there was the Curtis controller, mm-hmm. which was 120 volt max with maybe 200 battery amps if you were lucky. So it was a VW type performance. But that was all right because we didn't care. It went down the road.
Got me to work.
It went on, yeah, and it was electric. And at that time, that was all there was.
Yep. And then came lithium.
Now, when you, at that time, had the EV1 had already been out mm-hmm. and disappeared. Mm-hmm. So we got to watch the EV1 and the nickel metal hydride battery mm-hmm. come on the scene and disappear. Yeah. And the people out there that think that everything is every conspiracy thought or talk is bull don't know, because we saw it. Mm-hmm. We saw a wonderful battery come on the scene.
What, 26 years ago or something like that?
And it was the specs on that were basically half the weight mm-hmm. and 5 times the life.
There's no market for them.
Yeah.
No market.
Well, they when they didn't have to do that, when California gave up on their 1% mandate, they immediately hid them or took them off the market. Chevron bought the patent. GM sold the patent, mm-hmm. And that was it. They were gone, and we went back to our lead acid batteries with our tails between our legs, thinking we saw the miracle, and it
slipped through our fingers.
Yeah, it slipped through our fingers. Damn them car companies.
Or the oil companies are conspiracy. Yeah, that must have been it.
Yeah, they really are against us. Mm-hmm. And there it was. Yeah, and there was one company that was able to slip through and that was Vectrix. And they somehow were able to use this nickel hydride battery in their motorcycle.
Oh yeah, I remember them. I think you have one, don't you?
Yeah. Actually,
you have one in the house.
Yeah, which hopefully I'll give to you and you'll fix it.
Put some lithium batteries in it and get it to work again.
So yeah, we went. Think of the cars companies that we saw come on the scene. There was the Sparrow, mm-hmm. which had 13 12 volt. Optima batteries, those
AGMs.
And there was the Tango. Mm-hmm. You remember the Tango?
Yeah.
Now that had, I think, 20 Optima batteries. Mm-hmm. And who else do you remember there?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
So Charlie and I were talking about lead acid batteries because a lot of people still feel that lead acid is a way to go for golf carts or for neighborhood vehicles, and even some people for cars. And we were discussing the pros and cons.
Well, the crossover point is come and gone.
Yeah,
between lithium and lead acid, right?
We both remember when lithium was $1,500 a kilowatt hour, mm-hmm. and we're now seeing
$70, $60.
That just seems amazing to me.
Where lead acid is double that, at least.
At least,
probably 4 times.
If you're using it for, if you're using it for solar, which there are a lot of people that are still saying, well, solar, I'm going to use lead acid because that's what people are doing. It's readily available. I'll run down to the store and I'll get it. And the thing with the solar, where it does seem to shine a little bit, is that you're not lugging all this weight around. So who cares if it weighs 1,500 pounds? And the other is that because we do such a slow discharge on it, over a 20-hour period or whatnot, you're able to get twice the amount of power out of a golf cart battery than you would if you had it in a car. We basically, out of one golf cart battery, we were lucky to get a half a kilowatt. You get 100 amp hours.
You get about half.
Yeah, half of what they're rated.
Half of what the rating is. So 200 amp hour, you'll get 100 out of it. But yeah.
And that's pulling it down to the max.
Yeah, solar's better. Solar, they'll get 75% of that. But
yeah,
still 75%.
Yeah, you can't go.
In lithium, you get 100%.
Yep.
Especially
and you get the super cycle.
Especially these LFP batteries you got here.
Yeah, we got some of them behind us.
Some
right
of the
there.
real rare. I don't think anybody knows what these are.
These are the
Tesla LFP lithium
iron
phosphate batteries for Model 3, I guess. It probably came out of, or Y.
Yeah.
Could have been either one.
So Charlie at one time, he worked for Motorola, and then what they did like a downsize.
Oh, Motorola. I retired.
They wanted
voluntary layoff.
Yeah, they wanted you to go to Mexico or.
Well, they wanted me to work for a cell phone company. They wanted me to build cell phones, and I was pagers, and I watched the whole business start and end. And then I went from there to.
So then this was what I think was.
That's when we started. Yeah.
Well, you came and we did a couple of cars. We had a television.
Oh, yeah.
We had a television show.
That's what Josh. Josh was doing your video at that time.
Yeah,
and I was commuting with him.
He was going to do a reality TV show. And so we had, it was like 4 people, wasn't there? Georgia Joe, and Jack Riggy, and you and me. And we didn't make an interesting TV show. We didn't, no yelling, no screaming, no drama.
Exactly.
It was just a bunch of guys
talking geeky stuff.
Yeah, and converting cars.
I don't know.
And the TV show never happened. We never even got to see it. Did you ever see it?
No. Never.
Yeah, I never.
I thought he gave it to you. You don't have any of that?
No. We did 2 cars.
Yeah.
We did 2 cars.
2 complete.
Two complete.
Well, that's how I learned how to do this stuff. Exactly.
Yeah. That was before you did yours.
That was before I did it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you did a 240Z.
240 SX.
Or SX.
Yep.
With at this time the Zilla controller had come out.
I was using the Raptor.
Oh, okay. This
Remember
was
the Raptor before Zilla.
Before Zilla.
Before Zilla.
Okay, then I
had a find a controller.
Yeah.
And I found a Raptor. Zillas were just coming out, but they were very expensive and hard to get.
Well, so was the Raptor. Then.
I found that on eBay, something like that. So I got it used.
Okay, so you got a used Raptor.
I got a used Raptor.
And was it a 156? Or the T-Rex was the 300?
It was the T-Rex. It was the 300.
Okay, and you were running it on like 18 6-volt or 8-volt batteries.
We were going, they were 18 golf cart batteries at 6 volts. Right?
Yeah, so you were under, you were like 108 or something.
No, actually, they were 12 volt batteries.
I thought you had.
They were 12.
I thought you had.
So it's 12 times 18, yeah.
So you were getting up there in the voltage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty sporty. And then you got a
well, then I blew it up.
Yeah. That was the problem.
Under the hood, poof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you got a Zilla.
It lasted about 3 months, and going back and forth to work. I had about a 35-mile commute.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah.
Highway, though. It was 65, 70 miles an hour on the highway, and it would get there, it'd be a little warm.
No,
one day it just exploded.
Yeah.
And then we got the Zilla.
And that was
Zilla
right
1K.
when we started, when the electric car world started crossing over to this high voltage. Because before that time, the most voltage was 120. That was as high as you could go. And then the company, Curtis, the golf cart controller company, came out with a 144, which was really a big step up. Now you could go with 12 volters or 24 6-volters, and it had a little more amperage, and it was and then came the Raptor, and then the Zilla, which we thought we were there now. This is it.
We were until yeah, Otmar stopped making them. That's a whole story.
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole nother story.
Yeah, that was tragic because
Tragic.
he had made a controller that this thing is really great.
Mm-hmm.
It had, not only did it have, a speed sensor on it, so you could not over rev your motor.
Over rev, I used that.
Yep.
It saved me quite a few times.
Yep, you had a speed sensor on there.
It was slow, but it worked.
Yeah, and the way that it worked is when you hit that top RPM, it was like blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
You knew something was changing because
Mm-hmm.
it just shut off the controller and then turned it on and off and on.
It oscillated.
Yeah.
But it saved it.
Yeah, and it had a pre-charge circuit in there, and it had.
He had a lot of he's a lot of diagnostics. He measures all the closures and makes sure things time properly.
Yep, he measured the drop on the contactor.
Yeah.
You
remember that?
Yeah, because I made a mistake one time and took the voltage reading off of the wrong end of the cable.
Yeah, 8 foot down the road, and that's too much of a drop.
That was one time that Charlie came and helped me out, and I had a problem. I could not figure out why this thing wouldn't work, and we were just on the edge of taking all the batteries out, thinking it was a broken lead in the battery, and it turned out that I didn't realize that the Zilla sensed the voltage drop across the contactor, and I had the contactor in the back of the car and the long 2-aught cable coming to the front.
Well, if you look at the schematic, it says connected to across the contactor. It doesn't matter if it's the end of the wire.
And I'm thinking, if I put it on the end?
What's a 2-aught cable?
Yeah, and it turned out that the voltage dropped on that and as soon as and it was funny because it was the same thing. As soon as we got up to about 200 amps,
it's a fault.
That was the fault, and it would show a fault that made me think, an open battery. It said contactor. I forget what the fault was, but yeah,
contactor high resistance is what it
should have been. Yeah. And you saved me there.
That happened to me. That's how I found out. I did the same thing.
Oh, you did?
Years ago. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm looking at
because because you're saying what's the difference?
What's the difference? It's a schematic. It says put it across.
It's on one end of the wire or the other end of the wire. Who cares? It's a big 2-aught cable.
But if you read the manual, it does say that. It says
So that's part of what he was sensing, which we didn't even know he was sensing. I didn't know he was sensing that type of thing. All I thought he was looking at was open or closed.
Yeah, tenths of a milliohm or hundreds of milliohms. He's detecting.
Yeah. So great. And Otmar or Otmar, we don't know.
I don't know.
He's got we don't know, but he was the god of controllers. We called him because he had made a controller that just.
Well, he had the guts to do it. I knew a lot of guys in the club in. This is Gold Coast Electric Vehicles on the east coast of Florida. I was vice president at the time, and we had one guy. What was his name? He makes Dave. He makes the EVSE plug.
Oh, right. And made them out of aluminum.
Modular EV is the name of his company. He's still around, and he makes that bullet aluminum plug.
Yeah, made a beautiful J17.
He made a controller. Beautiful controller he made, but after he got it all done, he brought it to the club. He showed it to us and said it does more than Otmar's Zilla 2.
Yeah.
Yes, built it.
And what did he use? IGBTs or?
I think just
modules?
One big IGBT and a big capacitor that had this weird hexagonal cooling jacket too. It was really cool. And I said, well. Dave, are you going to sell it? He goes, no, I can't do it. I said, why not? He goes, the liability. I'm afraid I'm going to kill somebody with this thing. It's so much power in this little box. And he just didn't feel that he covered enough of the edge cases to keep it 100% safe from killing somebody.
Yeah, we had a lot of
It's like if you invented a gun. Are you going to sell a gun? Well, he said, no, I don't want to sell that because somebody might hurt themselves with it. And he was gainfully employed.
And this was the problem with Victor Tikhonov, too.
Yeah,
he wouldn't do conversions. He would sell parts, but he wouldn't do any conversions because he didn't want the liability.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, he's gainfully employed, his wife. And he said, no, I'm just afraid.
Yeah, which this is the problem, with our situation in America, and that's that we're afraid to a lot of smart people that could be making stuff. There's probably somebody that's got a great idea for a nuclear power plant, and it's not going to do it because it's too much liability. Why am I? Why am I going to share my idea?
we do live in a society that sues a lot.
We're afraid of lawyers, and it's holding us back.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so
we digress.
Yeah.
A lot.
So we had the Zilla controller come out where everybody's happy and everything else, and Otmar gets sick and stops making them, and the whole world stopped. And it's like, how can this world stop? Mm-hmm. We got so many orders, we got so many people wanting to do conversions.
They weren't cheap. It's still not cheap.
Yeah, they weren't
but
cheap.
They were worth every penny.
Yeah, because they were so good. And at that time, it was a weird time in that there were so many people doing conversions compared to now. I mean, we got a lot of people doing conversions now, and I think we probably have more because there's just more stuff out there and everything.
More parts available.
But at the same time, it doesn't seem like it did then. We had EV shows. I mean, there were EV. A bunch of different people had yearly events. Battery Beach Burnout.
Oh yeah.
Did you go to all the?
Just one.
Just
one.
Which
I
one?
got the shirt. Oh God, I don't remember now. I got the shirt to prove it, but that's about it.
Yeah, I think I went to all three.
Matt got me started with that. I ended up working for him, and then
okay, that's what I wanted.
Matt
to get
Graham.
To. Yeah.
Matt, if you hear me.
Yeah.
he's also the blame for getting me in this.
Well, I think he was vice president.
He was vice president,
and he had a super car with a 2K Zilla.
I met him because he had a 240SX conversion.
Oh,
and I looked up on EV Album.
Yep.
Found out who has a 240SX, so I can pick his brain before I even knew you. And Matt showed up first, and I'm like, Matt, okay. So he lived in West Palm Beach, right near me. I lived in Boynton Beach, Florida at the time. So I called him.
So that car was a 240 that he had?
He had a 240
with
SX.
two 9-inch motors.
Yeah. Yeah, connected together, and then he, and it wasn't running at the time, but he told me, what do you want to know about it? And we went to his house, and he was great.
No, he did good at the drag strip with that.
Oh, yeah.
He had a 2K Zilla and had it hooked up to switch the motors from series to parallel.
And he showed me it can be done, and he said, well, there you go.
And he had the blown contactors at one point to show it.
Prove it. And he said, I'll get it on the road one of these days, and that was it.
And that was with like 20, maybe 25 orbital batteries?
I don't remember what he had.
He went to the max with everything, so I wouldn't be surprised if he had 25. The maximum current on that.
I think he still has a record for one of the speed records
for lead acid.
Yeah,
yeah. I think it was like a 13-second quarter or something.
He still
has
really the record.
For
Last
the time
I checked, that was a few years ago.
For the time, it was very impressive.
But he got me started because that said, okay, I can get my 240 converted now. That's no problem. And then I found you in Crystal River, Fort Pierce.
Fort Pierce.
Fort Pierce at the time. Yep.
And
the rest is history. Then the videos and the stuff back there.
So after that, I want to keep the timeline going. So you stopped at Motorola. You kind of took this hiatus for what, a year?
Oh wait, Motorola? Yeah, about a year and a half.
And then you got in, and then you and Matt got into doing the hydrogen. Yeah, a company hired them to do hydrogen fuel cells.
It's a company called Enerfuel, and Enerfuel was taking, was basically creating electricity from hydrogen. So we'd use hydrogen fuel cells, which is another interesting topic. Matt's still doing that kind of work.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, he's mostly air conditioning now. So they have really high efficiency air conditioners using a similar technology.
Oh, you mean the hydrogen?
I don't know if he's using hydrogen anymore. I haven't even asked him about that.
But you guys were doing the real fuel cell.
We were doing fuel cells, which are in a reformer and taking in kerosene and turning it into.
And you were running them on kerosene.
On kerosene over various fluids and.
You remember any of the numbers, like how on a gallon of kerosene, how many kilowatts you could get out?
I don't. It was a 4 or 5 kilowatt system. It wasn't big.
But I mean, so would you get 4 or 5 kilowatts out of a gallon of kerosene?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It wasn't a big. There wasn't a big kerosene store on there. It was only a quart or something like that.
Huh. And it had a catalytic converter.
Yeah. That was the problem. CO, carbon monoxide. So we had to get rid of that, and we had to go to Germany to get a reformer that ran at some god awful temperature, 160 degrees Celsius or something like that.
So you had to have some electricity heating up the. Heating up the catalytic converter.
Oh yeah, I had a burner. So we went to Germany and we bought a burner.
So you heated it with the kerosene.
With so the same kerosene would be used as a burner.
So you might not have gotten 5 kilowatts of actual usable power.
Not with that. That's true. But once it heated up, it self-heated. So once you only had to use the burner
Uh-huh.
to get it up to temperature, and then once it got up to temperature, then the whole reforming process would take over, and the hydrogen reformer would heat itself up.
Yeah.
So at that point, you wouldn't be losing so much energy. The byproduct of the reforming process could be burned and used to keep the process going.
Still, you're not convinced about hydrogen.
I didn't know. Hydrogen to me was
It was a job.
yeah, it was good.
And you got paid.
But
and everything
I
else.
built battery management systems because the fuel cells are also these 1.5 volt things that
Oh, yeah?
stack up. And yeah, we had 100 cells stacked.
Oh, so
I built his battery management system, the whole electronics that controls the reformer.
because you couldn't have any of those. What would happen with a fuel cell if you didn't keep them all balanced?
It wasn't more of a balancing thing. It was a safety thing. You want to make sure that you run the right gases through it.
If you push too much through a cell that wasn't generating,
You burn them out.
you burn them out.
Yeah, I mean, literally, they were very dainty. Yeah, they burned out quite easily. So you had to make sure the voltages had to stay within a narrow range. Temperature had to be controlled in a narrow range. And you had to keep everything optimal. And then if it got too far out of range,
That's what a fuel cell puts out, like a 1 volt.
Yeah, they were low voltage. It was like a couple of, I think 2.5 volts a cell or something like that, up to the high end, and then it drops down to like 1. So I used a standard BMS, the chips that we use today, the 68.
But that was way before.
Back then it was an LTC 6804.
But that was before
linear
lithium, though. Or was
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah,
So what
barely.
were they doing with BMSs before lithium? They
That was
actually
just
had
with
them?
lithium, yeah.
So,
Well,
okay,
NiCad,
it's-
you can do any stacked cell.
but I mean, I didn't know they had BMS
They
chips.
just came out within a year or two at that point. That was just.
And
they
you guys
started.
just said, "Oh, this will work for us."
Yeah, even my BMS was using the Maxim chip, which is a Maxim 16. It's a 12-channel Maxim chip back at the time. Just came out. I was the beta tester, so those are the first years of those chips coming out.
And you worked how long for that?
Oh, 4 years.
4 years. Wow.
Yeah, about 4 or 5 years.
So you really got you.
And then Goldman Sachs stopped funding us, and the company.
Yeah.
The company went back.
But you got a chance to get your teeth into BMS design.
Yeah.
That was the big thing is so at
Well, I
that
did my
point.
own BMS before that.
Oh,
So
you did?
Before I even got While
But
I
you
was
didn't
working,
have lithium.
While I was working at Enerfuel, we had the lead acid pack in my car
Right.
for about a year.
Yeah.
And then I bought those headway cells in China. I imported them myself.
Oh, okay. So you bought the cells and then made your own BMS.
Yeah, it's because nobody
For-
had one that I trusted. So I
Right.
created my own BMS, vintage voltage BMS. You got one of
I
those at
remember
one
that.
point.
Yeah.
And, well, the box is somewhere here.
Oh yeah, you got one of the old.
It's in my car. But yeah, I got one of the old ones in my car. So I built my own BMS, and that's where this all kind of started.
Yeah.
While I was working with Matt, in the evening, I was making my own BMS, and
Oh my
inside.
God.
And
Yeah, this
I was showing it to the club, guys at the club, and they said, "I want one of those." So I ended up making and selling like about almost a dozen systems.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Yeah. You had boards printed up then
Yeah.
at that point.
I
But you
hand
populated.
assembled every one.
You populated them.
Every
So
one.
all you had to make up the printed circuit board,
Mm-hmm.
and you soldered on all the parts. Oh my God.
Still do I still do for all my boards. So the first version of every board I make, even to this day, even the vintage
Yeah.
voltage BMS.
Yeah,
which-
this is
this is the new one.
This would be us jumping ahead quite a bit.
Quite a bit. So this is the new one, and this one I always put the first couple together
I guess
myself.
we could actually wrap the whole thing up.
Because the beauty of doing it yourself is you get to see the errors incrementally. So you put the power supply together, you test it. The power supply works good. Then you go ahead and you put the processor on, see if it works.
Look at this thing. I'm looking to make sure my camera, because sometimes I do these videos. Wow. And this is a 4-sided board, you say?
It's a 4-layer.
4-layer.
Yeah, there's a ground and a power plane, and
Oh my God.
It,
yeah, this is just
it's
amazing
got a lot
to
of
me
stuff on it.
that you can. So you designed this whole thing out, and then this one here, he's made to run on the Tesla X, S, Y, and 3 batteries. They're B&B boards, which that's the board that comes on the battery.
Mm-hmm.
And this talks to that board, reads all the cell voltages, is going to control relays, is going to... There's a B&B board.
That's a B&B from these Tesla modules
from
here.
the new ones.
So these have 2 Batman chips. These are 12 cell voltage monitor chips, and this board talks to this board to collect the voltages and temperatures and keep it safe without you having to run a lot of wires.
Yeah.
You just use 2 wires.
You just, yeah, 2 wires
two
from
wires.
each.
Well, really 4. Two in each direction to do it
Yeah.
safely.
So this is going to be great. And
So this talks to any Tesla battery module in the world, even some you haven't seen yet. This is the newest Tesla battery module.
and
BME.
possibly some other
Yeah,
batteries.
there's more. There's more. I got a Mercedes-Benz uses the LTC 6813 chip. This talks to that as well. Who else did I talk to recently on these? Any Linear Technologies chip.
Yeah, what about,
This'll
you think,
talk
like Nissan Leaf?
Nissan Leaf has a centralized BMS. Lots of wires going to one big
Right.
board. So there's really nothing
Oh,
to talk
so
to.
there's nothing to talk to. Yeah,
You know,
that's right.
I mean, they have
Same
like
thing with Chevy Volt.
yeah, exactly. They have like 8 of these chips on one big circuit board, and they
Right.
run like 1,000
Yeah,
wires to it.
all
I
the
don't
way.
believe in that approach. Sorry.
Yeah.
Tesla doesn't either.
Yeah.
We like distributed BMSs because battery management, because it just makes wiring.
Yeah.
You know, we want to get rid of wires. Another
So-
thing coming is wireless BMSs.
Oh,
Pretty
my
soon,
God.
that's my next thing, is to make this all wireless.
So let's just wrap up a couple of thoughts, because everybody's curious about Tesla and what they're. And I'm always saying that when he came on the scene, and if you remember, he came on the scene with that Lotus Elise, and you know.
Oh, Elon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When he came
yeah.
on the scene, everybody that all us old people like you and me and everybody else, we were kind of
I'm not
thinking. What is this? What is this guy doing? He's gonna do conversions of a Lotus Elise,
It's basically what he did.
and he's gonna and he's no different than the guy doing the Prowler or the
The
PT
controller was what,
Cruiser.
EV propulsions?
Yeah. I mean, there
Controller.
was a dozen other companies doing conversions, and there were some cars like the Sparrow and the Tango that were actually doing real cars. And I think wasn't the Aptera. You remember the Aptera way back then?
Yes,
Yeah,
it was there.
that's still, they're still coming along.
I thought of
now.
that when you were talking earlier.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
I
The
thought.
Aptera was back in lead acid days.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've been hanging in there. That's a good example of somebody that really has hung in. And the Sunrise never made it, which is kind of too bad. That was another company that a lot of our friends were involved with. That just somehow. But Tesla came and some of his ideas. The one idea was all the little computer cell batteries.
18650.
Yeah, we all thought that was nuts, right? Who in the world is going to put
18650.
who's going to put together
3,000.
Yeah, who's going to put together 3,000? And then the other thought that we all thought was nuts was, he's going to fuse every battery with a little wire. Well, you're going to put 6,000 fuses on this thing? 6,000 fuses. What are you, nuts? And you're going to put all that together? And who needs a 300-mile car? 100 miles is all anybody needs, right?
Right.
And who wants a 2-seater? You got to do a 4-seater. What were some of the other things that people were saying was just too?
Oh, the original Roadsters?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
it's just too expensive.
Too expensive.
Only California cars, you know.
Yeah.
It was. Have you ever driven one?
No.
You ever ride one? I did. That was kind of my first. Yeah, I think that's one of my first EVs I got to ride in. It's a trip. I mean, it's so low to the ground. You're only 6 inches off the ground. And
Uh-huh.
so even when I got into it, I must have been, 35 years old getting into this thing. And it
Uh-huh.
wasn't elegant.
You headed out,
Nice
Red?
meeting you.
Yep.
There's Red.
See you Monday.
Yep, we'll
See
see
you
you
next time
then.
around.
Take it easy. So you got, well, wait a minute.
That was like the first few.
Was that
back in the
before
club
you had
days.
done lithium?
Yeah.
So you were,
Around the same time,
Yeah.
just before I did mine.
and we both had, well, there was something, well, it's still going on, that electric, Florida EAA or the club?
Electric Vehicle Organization.
Something like that. Now, we've had a bunch of presidents and were you a vice president?
I was the vice president.
You were
for
the
a while.
vice president?
Yeah, yeah.
I think- I think-
Andrew was the president for a little while.
Yeah, I think
The
everybody.
club still. I think the chapter still meets in West
Yeah,
Palm.
yep. I think so. There was a guy, Charles Whalen,
Yep.
was a big supporter,
EAA.
and he was going around trying to set up charging stations. And the idea of a charging station back then was a 240 plug that might give you 20 amps.
Maybe.
We thought that was a big deal.
That was a fast charger.
That was a big deal. That was a big deal. And they had the paddle chargers, and he had the RAV4 EV,
He did. Yeah.
and thought everything was. So we got to fast forward because I guess we're running out of time. Everybody's leaving.
They are.
Wow, what do we say? It's been a great adventure. I'm so glad.
There's more coming.
Yeah.
Lots more videos coming. We're
Yeah.
gonna be.
And-
This is gonna be a product soon.
Yeah.
I promise.
Yeah, and
It's got to work.
Yeah, just and this is the thing with all this stuff is it's a lot of people working together, but part of the fun of working together is taking a challenge that we have and dealing with it and figuring ways out and seeing our other friends and whatnot taking that challenge and us all working together. And I think this is kind of what we need to encourage here in our planet is this camaraderie of working together to get something done. And that was so big back then. We had the electric car events, and everybody would come and show off your car, and everybody's sharing information. And
they still do it. I mean, they still have car clubs, and they meet for collect the cars.
And it
was that kind of thing for EVs.
Maybe
really
the other thing that I think has happened with you and me is that we've just got so busy in life that we don't have time to enjoy this little cream that's out there. You know, the cream of going to a car show and talking to people, and like we used to. It used to be a 3 or 4 day event. I would go down to West when they had Battery Beach Burnout. It was an
event.
Yeah, we had drag racing, autocross, and long distance.
EVTV's still doing this. They had an event just Geraldo there just a couple months ago, like a month ago.
Yeah, we didn't get to talk about all these people.
Yeah, there's other people still doing it. They have a kind of.
If we left you out, and of course there's John Whalen, the famous guy out in California. You know, Plasma Boy.
Oh yeah. White Zombie.
White Zombie.
White
oh
Zombie.
My God,
He's still around, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how now he was on the cutting edge. That guy, he was the first guy with a cost-off motor running a Zilla controller. I think and a Raptor too.
So how about Lowell? Was it Lowell Sims? I think he's still running. Well, he was running his car on the track in West Palm Beach.
Yeah, his
what was it? A Porsche?
Yeah, Porsche. Why can't I remember? Because I had the same car. No,
it was a Porsche. I remember the Porsche. It looked so different that you couldn't even.
It was the Porsche with the engine in the front. 280.
280. Okay.
Wasn't it 280?
I don't know. I was only the flag boy.
How is it I can't remember the car I had?
He had my BMS, so he was one of the buyers of my BMS, and that was the litmus test. Getting the BMS to work in a car like that,
with all that power,
pulling 2,000 amps,
with
2,000 amp controllers. Yeah. And getting it to work reliably was the biggest challenge. And once I knew it worked in that car, I'd never have a problem anywhere else. And that was the truth.
Yeah.
It never did.
Yeah, because that was a noisy environment.
It was I had to actually do a couple of up revs and went back to Maxim, who made the BMS chip, and found a bunch of bugs in their design. And they said, "Oh, thank you." Okay. They sent me a bunch of chips. I had to go and rebuild my boards because they had really defects in the chips that we had uncovered.
That the noise would get through.
Yeah.
And you didn't get that under weak power conditions.
It would never have a problem at like 10 amps, even 100 amps. Until 2,000 amps, those spikes generate tons of electromagnetic interference everywhere, and places that you wouldn't imagine to get interference would. You know.
Yeah.
Like the clock on the microcontroller, and it's like, how did it go from there to here? But it's radio waves, and it travels.
See, that's the type of problems that I'm amazed you guys figure out.
That's why we do 4-layer boards too. It helps a lot.
Because
the ground planes.
I guess, but I mean the thing is you almost can't see the problem because when are you going to see it with 2,000 amps flowing through unless you set up some kind of weird thing? And then there's also how the cables are run.
I mean the BMS, like this board doesn't see it, right? Because it just talks to the couple of wires, communication wires.
That's the nice thing about
effectively the BMBs.
Yeah.
But the BMBs see it.
Yeah.
So those are the guys that have to really.
But they're so close they don't get.
They're right on the cells.
So they don't get necessarily.
But the issue becomes each of them is at a different potential, talking over the serial link, serial communication channel, and they're all doing like a wave.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. How you keep the noise. I mean, all this information is going over these two wires that are twisted together. Mm-hmm. Of course, I guess we don't need the thing to run at lightning speed, right?
No, it's only running at about a megabit per second.
Uh-huh.
At that point, you're sampling it, maybe 10 times a second. So some do a little faster, but that's all you really need for the BMSs. So it's not a lot of data, like gigabit Ethernet, right? But even at that speeds, it's still a lot of data. and the noise is just so high at times. Common mode becomes a problem because if you think about it, one end of your pack is at one voltage, and the other end, 95 cells later down the line, experiences that pulse at some microseconds later.
Oh yeah.
So it creates an interference,
Oh.
like a wave, just like a wave.
Huh.
And that causes a big discrepancy in the voltages.
So
from one
yeah,
to
so
the
our
other.
front pack is at this voltage and our back is at this in this one microsecond.
Yeah, in an instantaneous period of time, which these bits are going over.
Right.
These bits are trying to come down this channel, and so it's a challenge to keep everything from blowing up. You got to make sure that common mode.
And what when the noise
right.
gets so bad, the thing just shuts down.
It blows up the chips.
Oh, it blows up the chip.
Yeah, a lot of the chips only work common mode, like it might only do 10, 20 volts. And then you get this noise coming in at like 50 volts, and just like any electromagnetic spike, blows things up. Silicon is very picky. It doesn't like over voltage.
Yeah.
You could put over voltage at even a couple of hundred microamps, it can blow up a piece of silicon.
Yeah,
Chip.
because the chip is so small inside.
The chip is so small that that little bit of current is enough to blow it up. They put ESD diodes and stuff on it, but even the ESD diodes can only take
God,
some
the
limit.
way you guys figure all this out, it's amazing. All right, Charlie.
Fun
well,
stuff.
Thanks, and thanks for coming by. Thanks for
sure.
sharing all this. Yeah, it's neat. Digging up old history there and whatnot.
Stay tuned.
Yes.